Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi 1 week at a time. This is our first class of Masechet Makkot, and we are going to be reviewing Daf 2 through 8. As you all know, the Masechet starts on Daf 2, not on 1, because it is just a continuation of the Masechet of the previous Masechet, and it's as if we are constantly learning. There is no beginning and there is no end. So just an introduction to Masechet Makkot. The word Makkot means lashes. We're going to be discussing 3 topics in this Masechet. The first is eidim zomemim. These are witnesses. We're going to see in a minute. These are witnesses who are lying, but in a very particular way, and they get a very particular punishment. The next topic is going to be about galut, which means exile, but not on a national level, on a individual level. This is discussing a person who kills someone accidentally, again in a very specific way, and they go to exile to the miklat, the city of refuge. The third topic of our Masechet is Makkot, which is lashes. Who gets it? How is it given? And etc. Some say that this Masechet is still part of Sanhedrin. Others say that it is not. Okay, so now we're going to discuss eidim zomemim. That's the first chapter. These are false witnesses that get the same punishment that they are trying to give to the defendant. And the way they are disqualified is what's called hazama, from the word, right, zomemim. Hazama means that a second set of witnesses come and say, how could you say that you saw Bob killed so-and-so on Monday? You were with us on Monday at the movies. There's no way you could have seen it. If the sentence was already carried out, they cannot become eidim zomemim. And all the same thing is if the person was not convicted yet. Therefore, it has to be in between conviction to punishment. Now, if it's just contradictory testimony, right? It happened with a gun. No, we saw it with a knife. That's called hakasha. That is not eidim zomemim. Okay, so let's begin with Daf 2. The Mishnah tells us that 2 people testify. So now we're going to construct the case. 2 people. Wait, hold on 1 second. I just want to see how far we're going. Okay, 2 people testify that a kohen, right, that a priest disqualified because he's the son of an illicit relationship, or a relationship that was asur, was prohibited. Now, if they become eidim zomemim, they can't become a disqualified priest because they're not priests, and even if they are, they cannot be disqualified. Rather, they are going to get lashes. So you can see the connection here. Another case, 2 people testified that a person needs to go to the miklat, to the city of refuge, and they become eidim zomemim. They get lashes. They do not get sent to the city of refuge. Right? The Mishnah is beginning with exceptions to the rule, right? All other cases, and we'll see more exceptions, but all other cases, they're going to get the same punishment. You're trying to get the person to pay 200, you're going to have to pay 200, etc. So now the Gemara explains, our Mishnah is referring to the end of Sanhedrin that said that eidim zomemim get the same punishment unless they try to convict a daughter of a kohen as an adulteress, right? If you remember, we learned that in the last Masechet. So in general, they would get the same punishment, but there are certain exceptions where they do not get the same punishment. This is based on the verse, like V'asitem lo ka'asher zamam, you do to him what he tried to do, and you do not ruin, right, his children. Therefore, you cannot disqualify the eidim zomemim as you can't disqualify them if they are kohanim. We said that they cannot be sent to a city of refuge. City of refuge is only for someone who kills by accident and no other person, and therefore eidim zomemim cannot be sent to the miklat, to the city of refuge. There are four things about the eidim zomemim. Again, as we said, they cannot become disqualified kohanim. They cannot be sent to the city of refuge. They do not pay kofer, which we'll talk about it. That's if they testify that a person's ox killed another person, and they can't be sold into slavery, right? If they testify that a person stole, right? All of these things are punishments for specific people and not for eidim zomemim. Therefore, they do not, right, if it's a penalty or if it's seen as atonement, they do not get that punishment, and instead will get a different punishment. Okay, daf number 3. Rav says that the eid zomem pays according to his share. So we have to understand, what does that mean, according to his share? We already learned, even though I wrote in parentheses, we didn't learn yet, but we will learn that the witnesses split the monetary fee, but not the lashes, right? Meaning that, say they tried to convict someone that the person owes 200 zuz. So then each witness, again, it's 2 witnesses, each witness will pay 100 zuz. But if they're going to get lashes, they each get the full amount of lashes. And it can't be that if only one aid, if one witness becomes zomem, that he pays half, because you can only become eidim zomemim if both are disqualified. If you only disqualify one, then that is not valid. And it can't be that he admits to being an eid zomen, because that's also not valid. Rather, the case is that he admits that they were found to be already eidim zomemim in another court, and if that's the case, then he only has to pay half. But Rabbi Akiva says that they wouldn't pay because they admitted to it. Again, there's a discussion whether if you admit to something, if you still have to pay the penalty. Rather, the cases where they admit that they were fined already, and therefore it's a debt, and therefore you still have to pay. Okay, next Mishnah. The next case is 2 people testify that Reuven divorced his wife and didn't pay her ktuva. Right, so they're trying to get him to pay the ktuva. Then they become eidim zomemim. But the question is, what would they have to pay? So they can't have to pay the husband the value of the ktuva because he didn't pay it yet. Therefore, we estimate how much someone would pay for the rights to the ktuva, right? Because again, a ktuva has risks. And we're going to see what that means in a minute. So the Gemara says that actually a ktuva has 2 values. The wife's value, right? So a woman can sell the rights to her ktuva, right? How much would you pay for this piece of paper, which you technically it's basically a risk, meaning if she gets divorced or he dies before her, so then you can collect the money. But if she dies before him, it's worthless. It doesn't have any value. The other value is the husband's value. He can sell the right to the piece of land that's on lien for the ketubah, meaning you can use the land as long as he doesn't have to pay the ketubah. But as soon as either he dies or they get divorced, he then takes that property. So how much would you pay for the rights to the land? And we say that they'll pay more for the husband's rights than the wife's rights. So we evaluate based on the husband selling the ketubah, or we base it on the wife's value. And the Gemara says the halacha is the wife's value. Okay, next case. The Mishnah. Two people testify that a man owes 1,000 zuz to another person to be paid within 30 days. And the man says, I do owe that money, but I have 10 years to pay it. And then they become eidim zomemim. We evaluate how much someone would pay to have that loan for that extra time, right? A 10-year loan is very different than 30 days. So the Gemara mentions that if you have a loan for 10 years, Shemitah does not cancel the loan, or maybe it does. There's a machloket. What happens if Shemitah comes? Does it cancel the loan or not? Is it seen as a debt or not? Okay. The Gemara then discusses two other laws by Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav, and here it talks about the laws of Shabbat. Are you allowed to open the neck of a garment on Shabbat? That you cannot open the garment, the neck of the garment on Shabbat, but you can open a barrel. And the other discussion is a discussion about mikvah, which we haven't learned too much about, but a mikvah needs to be 40 se'ah, that's the volume of water that comes from a natural source, rainwater or spring. If 3 lugim of, again, a small amount of water falls in that is drawn water, it will, again, depending on the specifics, it could invalidate the mikvah. And the Gemara discusses what if wine falls into the mikvah, right? So if 3 lugim of water fall into wine and it still looks like wine, and then it falls into the mikvah that didn't have 40 se'ah, so then it doesn't invalidate the mikvah because we look at it as diluted wine, and wine does not invalidate a mikvah. But if it looks like water, it does invalidate the mikvah. And the Gemara also talks about a barrel. This is Daf 4. If a barrel of water falls into the Mediterranean Sea, a person can't immerse in that area right there because the water doesn't move that quickly. And we're concerned that maybe when you immerse, you're immersing in that water from the barrel and not in the sea's water. Okay, next Mishnah. Witnesses say that a person owes 200 zuz, and then they become eidim zomemim. They get lashes for false testimony, and they have to pay 200 zuz, right? So this is based on 2 separate verses, and therefore they pay and they get lashes. Or another opinion is no. If they pay, they don't get lashes, meaning it's seen as one prohibition. Either you pay or you get lashes. If they testify that a person is liable 40 lashes, we're going to learn that 40 lashes is the punishment, even though you really only get 39. But the punishment of lashes is called 40 lashes. We'll learn more about that at the end of the Masechet. So let's say they testify that a person is liable 40 lashes, and then they become eidim zomemim. They each get 80 lashes, right? 40 because they testified falsely, and 40 because that's the punishment they were trying to give the other person. Or again, no, they only get one set, which is 40. Okay, so now the Gemara explains, again, you only give one punishment, not two, or no, you could get two, and it's based on Motzi Shemra. Motzi Shemra was a man who accused a woman of having an affair or an adulterous relationship. He lies, so he gets lashes, and he needs to pay a penalty. So to here, and here the Gemara mentions Korban Pesach, which I thought was perfect for Pesach. Korban Pesach, it says you can't leave any meat left over, and if you do, you have to burn it. You don't get lashes if you do, because it's a positive commandment after a negative commandment, or because it doesn't have any action, right? You just left it over. You didn't do anything. That's why you don't get lashes. Or maybe you do get lashes, and we learned from, again, Motzi Shemra, that you can get both punishments. Okay. Next, Daf 5, the Mishnah says, eidim zomemim, split the monetary punishment, but not lashes. See, I told you we'll learn it later, right? So again, if the punishment, it was 100 zuz, they each pay 50, but if it's 40 lashes, they each get 40. The Gemara explains, right, lashes are connected to the death penalty, and just like you can't get half a death penalty, you don't get half of the lashes. Next Mishnah on Daf 5, people must personally make them eidim zomemim, right? They can't say the victim or the defendant was with us. That's not how it worked, right? They have to say imanu hayitem. You two witnesses were with us somewhere else at that time. So therefore, there is no way that you could have seen what you said you saw. If another set comes and testifies again, and they become zomemim, they are also punished, even if it's 100 sets, or maybe if it's becoming kind of right, it's becoming a thing where a lot of people are coming to say the same thing. We view it as a set of plotters, right? Everyone kind of like got together the night before and said, we're going to get this guy. And therefore, only the first set is killed or punished, but not the subsequent sets. So now the Gemara explains, again, hazama is only for the witnesses. And, right, again, let's say the witness says someone was killed in the east wing, and another set of witnesses says you were with us in the west wing. If you can see the east from the west, so then it's a valid testimony. But if not, so then they are eidim zomemim. Let's say, right, again, two witnesses say on Sunday in Surah in the morning he killed somebody, and then two people come and say, wait a minute, you were with us in Pumpadita, which is another city, Sunday night. So you need to see, can you make it from Surah to Pumpadita by the nighttime? And if so, they are not eidim zomemim. And if you can't, so then they are. Right? If, let's say, they say he killed him on Sunday morning, and two people say you were with us on Sunday, but the guy killed him on Monday or on Friday, they're still eidim zomemim, even though they are agreeing that the person killed the victim, because they couldn't, right, the original witnesses couldn't have seen it, they get punished. Right, because when they testified, he wasn't liable for death, but if they testified that he was convicted on Sunday, but he was convicted on Friday, then they aren't killed, because they aren't, right, they aren't seen as eidim zomemim. And the same thing goes with monetary payment as well. If there's only one set of eidim zomemim, right, they get killed. But if there are more, so then we see them as plotters. Okay, the next Mishnah. You can only become eidim zomemim if the verdict was pronounced. Remember, we said that the person had to have been convicted. Why is this the case? Because the Tzdukim, if you remember, the Sadducees, they only go according to the written law. So they say that zomemim, the only way you can be eidim zomemim is if they got the defendant killed, right? If they got him killed, so then they deserve to be killed. We say the opposite. If he was already killed, we don't want more people getting killed, right? But if he wasn't killed, now we're going to kill the eidim zomemim instead of this person getting punished. Again, right, we say ta'asher zamam lasot. They get what they tried to do, right? They need to still be alive. So if he's not alive, they don't get punished, right? If the defendant was killed, you cannot kill the eidim zomemim, again, because it's enough. The same thing with lashes. The witnesses only get punished after the verdict and before the punishment. Okay, the next of 2 or 3 killed. What does that mean? 2 or 3 witnesses can become, can make 2 witnesses into eidim zomemim. So too, 2 people can make 3 witnesses into eidim zomemim. Second. Or, what does the verse mean? Just like 2 won't be killed unless both of them become eidim zomemim. Remember, we said they both have to become eidim zomemim. They both have to be disqualified. So too, if there's a group of 3, they will not be killed until all 3 become disqualified, right? We don't say that, oh, get rid of 1 and then 2 will be okay. It doesn't work like that. They combine and they're seen as one set. Or 3 is to be more stringent, even though you don't need him because he's part of the group, he also gets punished. So too, God rewards people. And right, again, if you're just like the 3rd wheel on a mitzvah, you're going to get the reward, even if you were not the main person who did it, you will also get the reward. If one of the 3 witnesses becomes invalid, it nullifies the entire testimony, only for a capital case, but for a monetary case, maybe it's enough, it's okay, on daf 6, or it is invalid for both monetary and capital cases. Okay, the Gemara explains, right, if 100 witnesses gave testimony together, they're seen as one group, right? They give testimony one right after the other. The people involved in a crime are not seen as witnesses, and therefore they do not invalidate testimony. And therefore, if 2 brothers intend to give testimony, so then they invalidate the testimony, but if not, then they do not. Okay, next Mishnah on daf 6. 2 people looking from, okay, so now we're going to talk about witnesses and testimony. 2 people were looking from one window, and 2 other people look from another window, and 1 person in the courtyard is doing the crime, and 1 person warns the defendant. What's the case, Genevieve? Anyway, Kitty Genevieve, is that the case, right? The case where they all look and everybody thinks, everyone thinks that someone else is going to call, right? The bystander, right? Everyone is looking down and everyone assumes that someone's calling 911, but nobody is. But what's the case? 2 people, right? People are looking from 2 separate windows. So the question is, if the 4 witnesses can see each other, yeah, here, Kitty Genevieve, thank you. If the 4 witnesses can see each other, it's seen as one testimony. If they cannot see each other, then it's seen as 2 separate testimonies. Therefore, if two of them become eidim zomemim and they're separate, then only those two are going to get killed and the other two are okay. If they are seen as one group, so then they all need to become eidim zomemim for them to get punished. Both witnesses need to warn the defendant. Therefore, in our case, another opinion is that the witnesses need to be the ones who warn the person. So therefore, the case that we just described would not be valid. Or maybe it would be valid, right? Another opinion is that they do not have to be the ones who warn. So now the Gemara explains, right? If one person sees from one window and another from another window, that's invalid. Two people need to be together in order to be combined. If they can't see each other, even one after the other from the same window are seen as invalid. Okay. And then the Gemara says that the Sanhedrin could not use translators. That's why we say that people who sat on the Sanhedrin needed to know 70 languages. The Gemara talks about Rava, who actually uses a translator, and the Gemara says, don't worry, it was just so he could communicate, but he could understand everyone. Okay, two more daf. Daf 7. The Mishnah says that a person ran away after conviction. When they brought him back to court, you do not reconsider his verdict because he was already convicted. If two people testify that someone was convicted and here are the witnesses, so then they execute the defendant. A court of 23 judges can do this can exist in Israel and outside of Israel. And a court that executes someone once in 7 years is called a destroyer court, or maybe it's once in 70 years, or maybe never, right? And this we actually discussed in Masechet Sanhedrin, where we talked a lot about capital punishments, but how often did this happen? And we can see from this Mishnah that it seems to be very complicated. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says that if you never kill anybody, there are going to be a lot of murderers because people are going to think that they can just get away with murder, literally. Okay, so now the Gemara says, if you brought the person back to the same court, you don't reevaluate, but if it's a different court, you can. We said Sanhedrin of 23, it's based on a verse. It can also exist outside of Israel. And Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Kiva said that if they were on a Sanhedrin, they would never execute someone based on asking specific questions. And with that, we finish the first chapter. Next chapter, so that was the chapter on eidim zomemim. Now we're going to talk about miklat. Miklat is the city of refuge. As we said, a person who kills accidentally, a person who kills on purpose is executed. That was the last Masechet. Now a person who executes bishogeg, we'll explain what that means, but accidentally, goes to the miklat. There are stages in between as well. So now the Mishnah explains who's going to go, right? The following people go to the miklat, right? It's called going to galut, to exile. If they kill with a roller, if you push it down away from the person, right, or down the roof, and then it rolls and it kills someone, that is what's called bishogeg, accidental. Or if you were lowering something down and it fell and it killed a person, or you were going down a ladder and killed, right? So what is, right, all these things are, it's the downward motion. So then if it accidentally kills someone, you go to the miklat. But if you were pulling something either towards you or raising something and the rope broke, or you were going up the ladder, you do not go to the miklat. So again, the language is derech yirida. If it's going down, you go to the miklat. If it's derech aliyah, you do not. This is all based on the verse, right? The Gemara is going to go through the verse, and every word in the verse is very specific. So again, things that go down are b'shogeg, and right, it has to be right, accidental. It can't be on purpose with intention. If a person thought that it was okay to kill someone, that's called mezi, and you cannot go to the miklat. If a person had intent to kill an animal but not a person, no miklat. It has to be that it was suddenly, but if he killed him from going around the corner, that's not accidental. He should have been more careful, and therefore no miklat. If it's a soneh, someone who hates the other person, even if it's by accident, no galut, no miklat. And what about if you're going down in order to go up? It's still galut if you were killed with the downward motion. Let's say you were aiming for one side, but the rock or the arrow went to another side. There's no galut. Right? Again, we're being very specific on what does it mean, bishogeg. The verse says that a person was chopping wood in the forest. Forest means it's a place where everyone had permission to be there. If you didn't have permission to be there and the person got killed, no, you're miklat. Okay, the Gemara talks about a butcher chopping meat. And basically, how does one chop meat? So you swing we'll call it a cleaver, right? So you swing it down. Here, I'll do it this way. You swing it down, right, in order to get some momentum. Then you swing it up. Then it goes down behind you. Then it goes up, and then it goes down. So the Gemara says anytime it's going up, so then you do not go to galut. But if it's coming down, so then you do go to galut. So that is the discussion with the butcher. Okay. The Gemara, next Mishnah. The verse in the Torah talks about chopping wood. So let's say you're chopping wood, and you have an axe, and the head flies off and kills someone. You do not go to the miklat, or maybe you do. We'll discuss it in a minute. If a wood chip, right? Again, you're chopping a tree, and then the wood from the tree flies and kills someone. You do go to galut, or maybe you don't, right? Machloket. So now the Gemara explains. A person is chopping wood and killed a friend by accident. So it says that the iron fell and the wood killed the person. So the question is, what wood? Is it the wood of the axe or the wood from the tree? And that is the machloket. Daf 8, last daf for tonight. I feel like we're on like a marathon. Let's say a person throws something to a date tree and the dates fall and kill a person. There's a machloket. On one hand, the date fell because of his force. On the other hand, it was indirectly his force. So maybe it was not his fault and there is no galut. Okay. Also, I just want to say, when we say that a person does not go to exile, does not go to the miklat, there's two reasons. Either because he's less guilty and therefore he's completely scot-free, or because he's more guilty and he doesn't get to go to the miklat. So it's important to recognize that some of the cases are because there was less culpability, and some cases are because there is more culpability. So that's just important to recognize. Okay, two more mishnahs for today. If one throws a rock into the public domain and kills someone, they go to galut. If he threw the rock and then the person stuck his head out, he does not get galut. If he threw a rock into his own courtyard and killed someone who is allowed to be there, he goes to galut, to the miklat. This is based on the verse, again, in the forest, if he had permission. Maybe we're talking about only neutral activities. But if, let's say, a father is hitting a son, or a court is giving lashes, they're doing a mitzvah, and therefore, if the person dies, they do not go to the ir miklat. The Gemara talks about what does it mean you throw a rock into the public domain. That seems to be the mazid, right? You're doing it on purpose. The Gemara says, no, the case is that you're knocking down a wall of stones and it goes into the public domain, and that's the issue. Okay, last Mishnah for today. A father is exiled because of killing the son, and a son if he kills the father, right? And any Jew who kills another Jew will go to exile unless he kills a ger toshav. Ger toshav is a non-Jew who lives in your community, and it's not clear exactly what he's called a convert, but it could mean that he holds by the 7 Noahide laws, or that he doesn't do idolatry, but he is not Jewish, but he does live in your community. If a ger toshav kills another ger toshav, he does go to the ir miklat. If it's anyone else, then no. The father is talking about, what are we talking about with a father and a son? Maybe he's teaching him a trade, and then the son gets killed. But if he's doing a mitzvah, then he wouldn't be getting killed. A son who kills his father, right? We know that you'd get a different punishment for killing your father because you get chenek. But if he hits his father and the father accidentally dies, so then he does go to galut. If a eved knani, a non-Jewish slave, or a kuti kills by accident, they do go to galut, and they can also get lashes if they curse a Jew. Also, if a Jew kills a kuti, he goes to galut. And with that, we finish our Pesach learning marathon, and almost to the exact time. So again, those of you who are still here, thank you for still being here. I want to wish all of you a Moadim L'Simcha and a Chag Sameach. We will pick up Be'ezrat Hashem next Wednesday night. And wishing you a Chag Sameach. I'm happy to discuss for 2 minutes if anybody has any thoughts, or you're all tired.
Wow, I'm always amazed how you can manage to do so much so fast.
That was really well done.
Thank you. I did skip a lot of details, but I think overall we hit most of the main points. And mamash kol hakavod to everyone for finishing Sanhedrin and for starting Masechet Makkot. This is a very short Masechet. We should be finished in a few weeks. I think we finish around Yom Ha'atzmaut. So kol hakavod to everyone, and a Chag Kasher V'Sameach.
Chag Kasher V'Sameach.
Bye, everyone.
Chag Sameach, everybody. Thanks again.
Chag Sameach.